Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Good evening. This is the August 10th, 2021 open meeting of the Hopkinton Conservation Commission being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's amended bill on June 15th, 2021 due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. To mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we're complying with the amended bill that suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings at a publicly accessible physical location. This meeting will feature public comment. For the meeting, the Concom is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting is also being broadcast live and recorded by HCAM. Supporting materials that have been provided to the members of the commission for this meeting are available on the town's website. After commission members and staff have discussed each project application on the agenda, the chair will open the discussion to public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak are asked to identify their name and address. 3 minutes will be afforded for each public comment. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote of the commission members. So if I can confirm commission members that are currently present. And bear with me for a second, I'm just entering people into the meeting from the waiting room. Okay, so we have Melissa and Carrie will not be joining us tonight. Jim Cirillo.
Here.
Ed Harrow.
Here.
Ted Barker Hook.
Ted is here.
And this is Jeff Barnes. I don't think Janine has joined us yet. Well, let me scroll through.
Through the chair,
Yes, go ahead, Kim.
I do not think Janine anticipates joining us tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so we have a quorum of 4 members. Okay, so the staff roll call, Kim, Sierra McCauley,
Present.
Anna Rogers,
Present.
and Matt Verrill.
Matt is running a few minutes late. He's having some technical difficulties.
Okay, thanks, Kim. I was just gonna say I didn't see Matt join yet. Okay. All right. Moving along on the agenda. So, Kim, we have some documents for review. Yes.
Before we even get there, do you want to let the public know about things that have been removed from today's agenda?
Yes, thank you, Ted. That's a good thought. So for folks in the audience, Claro 0 Hayden Row has been continued to August 24th. Kim, were there any other applications for tonight that have been formally continued?
Yes, so Lot 1A Leonard, Lot 2A Leonard, and Lot 3A Leonard have all been continued to August 24th.
Okay.
As well as the ANRAD for 103 Wood Street.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kim.
And then
Sorry, Jeff, I'm happy to share the updated agenda if you want to give control of the screen.
Yep, I gotta do the screen share. Sorry, Kim.
I was going to say, I think there's some work session items that are also continued.
You should be good to go, Kim.
Am I right about that? The Fox Hollow LLC stuff?
That is correct. So are you guys seeing my screen at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's
perfect.
all continued as well, Kim, the Fox Hollow work session items.
Yep, 5 Fox Hollow Road, 3 Fox Hollow Road. They're both requests for minor mods, and then the request for an extension on the subdivision will all be discussed on the 24th.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Ted. All right, so documents for review tonight. We have the Mass Laborers Training, 37 East Street, the Crane Building Order of Conditions, Babin 50 Lakeshore Drive in order of conditions, Abbott Realty Trust, which was the 25 parcels on Adam Street, Fitch Ave, Myrtle Ave in order of conditions, Marathon Solar, 67 East Main Street, a COC, and Fox Hollow LLC, a 2-year extension permit. So did anyone have any questions or comments on those documents? Okay, if I can get a motion that the documents for review be issued in the form currently before the commission, and that Kim Sierra McCauley be authorized to sign the documents on behalf of the commission members present.
So
I'll make-
moved.
Okay, Ed made the
Second.
motion. Ted
Second.
seconded, and we'll do the roll call vote. Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and Jeff is an aye. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, let's move along to Heritage Properties, Trails at Legacy Farms. This is a fine discussion. Do we have Mr. Gately on the call tonight? Or Peter Bemis? Is Mr. Bemis on the call?
I see
Mr. Gately,
Gately's
Mr.
window.
Bemis? Let me just check the waiting room here. Okay, Matt's coming in and Mr. Goddard's coming in. I thought I saw Mr. Gately join. Let me just scroll through here.
He's got no face in his window, but I see his name there.
Mr. Gately,
Yes, can you hear me?
yes, good evening, sir.
Yep, good evening.
Okay. Thank you for joining us this evening. So this is a violation discussion. I presume that you have read the memos that Kim has sent over to you tonight or today.
Yes, I'm just seeing the memo for the first time here, so.
Okay. So first of all, I just want to say that, it's been a challenge at the site. With the violations, but, the past few weeks, your team has made significant strides in, kind of tightening things up there and getting the appropriate mitigation and erosion controls in place. So, we appreciate that. So that's the first thing that I wanted to say. Secondly, there's the violations. So there's been some fairly significant impacts to resource areas, as you know. And unfortunately, these impacts have been in Hopkinton, but they've, predominantly been impacting Ashland's resource areas and public water supply down at the Hopkinton Reservoir. So, you have the memo. I don't want to belabor this. So we've summarized the potential fines in the memo. And there was an April 2021 violation, which totaled $3,900. Then most recently in July, we had the kind of significant, impacts to the resource areas, which totaled $22,800. So the total of those two occurrences back in April and then in July are $26,700. In addition to that, we've had delinquent SWIP reports, which total $16,400. So what I would like to propose to the commission is that we, given the gravity of kind of the violations here, we assessed the fine of the $26,700 for the two violations back in April and then in July, and that the SWIP violations be held, which total 16,400. We hold those in abeyance. So I want to open that up to discussion from the other commission members.
Jeff, this is Jim.
Yep, Jim, go ahead.
I haven't reviewed that. I don't even know if I have it. But there's been another event recently within the last week, forget exactly when, where there was still a significant amount of silt coming down over by the water treatment plant. Is that part of what you just described? The fines and so forth?
It is not, Jim. So to give you a little bit of color on that, Kim has been out to the site, and Kim, feel free to jump in and provide some detail. Kim has been out at the site. In her professional opinion, it's about 95% stable at this point. There's a couple more things that she feels need to be implemented. But for the most part, the site is stable. This most recent event was the result of basically runoff coming off the site in training sediments that had been deposited from previous events. So this wasn't sediment running off the site per se. This was kind of residual sediment that was in the woods and areas down gradient, that when we had this most recent precipitation event, this kind of residual sediment got entrained and ended up in the reservoir. So I guess the point I'm making is that the site is pretty much stable now. So this recent event was kind of a residual, not violation, but residual deposits, entering the reservoir from previous events. Kim, does that?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Kim, do you have anything to add?
No, Jeff, I think you covered it. I'm glad that Beta went out on that day right after I did. And you can see from their report, they were actually able to do a turbidity reading. So they had a baseline turbidity and then a reading at the culvert. And you can see sample 1 and sample 2. And they were within 50 NTUs of each other. So I do support Beta's findings that the turbidity that you were seeing was kind of sediment, fine sediments that were picked up from the intermittent streams from the previous July sedimentation events. You can see from the photos that there were some areas that still were receiving some significant sedimentation, but they're all kind of being detained at the site. So the temporary detention is doing its job, albeit the applicant will need to stay on top of it to stay in compliance.
Through the chair.
Thanks for that evaluation.
Through the
Yes,
chair,
go-
this is Ed.
Go ahead, Ed.
I was at the site during the rain on Thursday, the 5th of August in the afternoon. I took a number of pictures, which I have shared with Kim. In particular, the pool at the bottom of Birkdale. I have pictures there that show it quite brown with sediment. I have pictures showing silt backing up behind the fence along Howe and Wilson Street, running under the fence, running down Wilson Street and across Wilson Street. I am dissatisfied extremely with the situation. There was, in my opinion, I grant that I am not the professional. This is a project that's being run massively parallel, and they need to scale it back, get things under control, and proceed in what I'm going to call a more serial manner. This is, in my opinion, is out of control. And further, I'm not going to tell you I came back from Montana early to go to the walk on the 17th, but I dragged my butt out of bed on a 2-hour time delay. And Melissa, her son Peter, and I were the only people from Hopkinton Concom there. Peter was getting ready to go pitch a baseball game, and Peter knows the rules: 3 strikes and you're out. We've got our 3 strikes here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Ted.
I want to apologize. I was having connectivity issues as you introduced this item. Could you, if you did it already, could you please again for me give a very quick history of violations with this particular project? I get lost on the different Legacy Farms projects, to be honest.
Yes. So this is the Heritage Farms site. In July of 2021. So just to back up, we've had some kind of minor incidents prior to 2021 where there has been runoff in train sediment that has impacted the Ashland Reservoir. Okay. We worked with the applicant at those times, I think, and I don't have it here in the memo, but I believe there was an incident in 2018. There was one in 2019, but they were fairly minor incidents. The major incidents occurred in July, or hold on, let me back up. In April of 2021. At which point, the commission totaled those violations to be $3,900. The applicant was working with the commission to get the site to get the site tidied up, and the erosion controls in place. But then in July, we had another fairly significant incident, which resulted in the $22,800 in violation fees.
So for those earlier violations, did we level fines? Did we hold most in abeyance?
We did not, Ted. Again, they were fairly minor. We were working with the applicant
Okay,
to just get the site buttoned down, with regard to the erosion controls,
Right.
but we did not level fines at those earlier dates.
Through the chair.
Yes, Kim, go ahead.
I believe that the commission issued a $6,000 fine at the time that the commission was considering the April event. The 6,000 had been held in abeyance since the 2018 violations.
Okay, so thank you, Kim. So here's my thinking is this. I've learned through my years on the commission that the point of holding fines in abeyance is that the commission then has leverage to say, listen, we have your money ready to claim. You better not let things get out of hand again. It seems that that method has not worked with this project. It seems that holding fines in abeyance has not given us the leverage that we'd hoped to see. And for that reason, despite the very large number you're proposing, Jeff, I don't know that holding fines in abeyance with this particular project has gotten us anywhere to this point.
Well, what I will add to that, Ted, is we did put a cease and desist
Mhm.
on construction at the property, which has, I think, been in place for about 3 weeks now. So
I
we,
think that's what caught their attention more than any of the fines. It would be my guess.
I would agree with that. So the cease and desist is in place. Kim, again, the site is I think 95% at this point stabilized. Kim has the authorization. Once she feels comfortable that the erosion controls are in place, to lift that cease and desist. So that's kind of another, that's another tool that we have in place right now. So, again, I just want to say that despite this kind of being a protracted process with getting this site into compliance as far as erosion controls, I think we're just about there. Kim, would you agree or disagree with that?
I agree. And I do want to add for clarification that there are 2 separate cease and desists currently that the trails are subject to. The first one is the cease and desist from conservation, which is a cease and desist on civil site work, with the exception of stormwater, site work related to stormwater improvements. And then the second cease and desist is from the building department, and that basically shuts down all construction, electrical, plumbing, inspections, you name it. So the building cease and desist, obviously the building department and the building inspector is the ultimate word on that. He has been taking the status of that under advisement from me. So when we talk about lifting the cease and desist, I think the only cease and desist that's on the table currently is recommending to the building inspector that he lift his cease and desist. I don't believe that I feel that we're ready to lift a conservation cease and desist, which would mean that the applicant would not be able to move forward with new housing starts. In other words, he would not be able to dig new foundations until we, the Conservation Commission, and myself was ready to move forward with that.
I guess my point was holding all of the SWIP fines in abeyance. That's what I'm pushing back against a bit. And I don't know where the other commission members feel, but
Through the chair, maybe you missed, Ted, when I was discussing what I saw during the rainstorm, but I do not disagree with your point one slight little bit. I'm just very appalled.
Okay. Jim, you want to weigh in on this?
I do, but I have to unmute myself. I agree that, we've been patient and we should not be holding money in abeyance anymore. So I agree with what Ed said.
Okay,
Some of the pictures through the chair, some of the pictures I took of storm drains show that I'm not quite sure what the technical term is, but filtration for devices around the catch basins were leveled down flat and sediment was running over them into the catch basins. And like I said, the pool at the bottom of Birkdale was brown with silt again.
okay, got it. So what I'm hearing from the other commission members is that we have a total of $26,700 in violations related to the impacts to the resource areas. We have another $16,400 related to the delinquent SWIP reports. So am I understanding that it is the opinion of you folks that both of those fines need to be assessed?
That's where I stand, yes.
This is Ed, I agree.
Jim, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So Kim, if we can just assess those fines, and I'll take a motion.
Through the chair, quickly.
Yep, go ahead, Kim.
Jeff, would you say that the missing SWIP reports contributed to site conditions, which resulted in the site conditions that resulted in the discharge, the July discharge events?
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
I just wanted to make that connection.
Yep. That's a good point, Kim.
Jeff?
You know,
Do we
so I
have-
think, you know, to Kim's point, the commission finds or is of the opinion that, you know, the lack of the SWIP reports or reporting, you know, led to the erosion controls not properly being managed or monitored, and that, you know, ultimately resulted in the alteration to the resource areas. Jim, go ahead. Jim, did you have a comment? Otherwise, we'll move along.
No, I don't. You answered it.
Okay, so if I can get a motion to assess the fines as discussed.
So moved.
All right, Ed, in a second.
Ted, second.
Okay, we'll do the roll call vote. Jim,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Ted, aye.
and Jeff is an aye. Okay. And again, you know, Mr. Gately, Kim has the authority of the commission, you know, once she's satisfied with the, you know, kind of final measures that are being conducted at the site, you know, once those are implemented, we can lift the cease and desist order from the sorry, I'm spacing here from the,
Through the chair,
yeah, go ahead.
from the
Kim.
building department.
From the building department, sorry.
And I would add that I'm also awaiting the opinion of my consultant professional engineer. So I'm going to be leaning on them as a professional engineer.
Okay, great. Yeah, so through the building department, that's what I was looking for. Thank you, Kim. Okay, Mr. Gately, Mr. Bemis, any questions?
I do have one, Mr. Chairman. So I fully expected the assessment of the fines. I have met with John Westerling, the DPW director in Hopkinton, and Doug Small, the DPW director in Ashland. Part of a presentation that I had made in the field when your representatives were also in attendance. was, and I think I've said this before, is to try to use these monies that need to be collected for the fines to be applied to doing some infrastructure improvements that we've found necessary at the off-site areas. John Westerling was supportive of that idea, as was Mr. Small from DPW Ashland. So these monies that we would be providing you would go into your general fund, and if you were to consider them being applied as mitigation measures at this site, which could definitely benefit from this, I would be most grateful for the opportunity to try to improve some off-site conditions that we found. We've done the survey work already. We're just initiating some discussions here. And I don't know whether that can be considered or not at this time. I just would ask you to either consider it now or bring it up at a future date, and you can consider it, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Mr. Bemis. I think, kind of the commission's perspective on this right now is, let's get things on the site buttoned up and stable. I'm certainly amenable to that. There's a lot of stakeholders that are involved in that process. We have the town of Ashland, the town of Hopkinton, 2 conservation commissions, 2 DPWs, peer reviews from engineering. So my sense is, while I think, that might be a kind of a noble gesture, my sense is that, from a practical standpoint, it's going to be tough to implement. But I will say this, let us circle back internally with our town manager and DPW director and just kind of get their final opinion, and our town council, and get their final opinion on that. But if we can, let us get back to you, okay?
I'm fine with that. It's just, I know what good $28,000 could do to the off-site conditions there. That's all from what I've observed. It has
I
nothing to
understand.
do with the site. So that's all I'm asking is the opportunity. So thank you. That's enough. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
we'll take a look at it. The improvements are, to both Ashland and, in a more minor nature to Hopkinton. So, there needs to be some communication between the 2 towns on whether that's something that's feasible or not. But we'll look into it and get back to you. Okay.
That's fine. Great. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. Thank you. And again, I just want to, I know this has been a difficult site. I want to thank you and Mr. Gately for the efforts. In the past few weeks, we appreciate it. The town of Ashland appreciates it. Let's just make sure we stay on top of it so we don't have any more issues. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you one question?
Yes, sir.
Make a comment. Thursday will be 5 weeks. I think you might have mentioned 3 as far as the cease and desist.
Yep.
And I'm just not following what we have not done to, I think it was just characterized as we're 95% there. So I don't know, Peter, if you know exactly where we stand on that, but I thought we were there. And there's been a paperwork submission and review comments back and forth with Beta, and I believe they've all been addressed, but I'm just not sure exactly what we need to do to.
Yeah, Mr. Gately, let me just let Kim interject here to kind of let you know where she stands.
Yeah, I think we're getting extremely close, Mr. Gately. I believe that Beta has had all of the paperwork that they've asked for about a day, 24 hours, I believe. So we're just waiting on that, on Beta's final kind of opinion or review or statement from them. I believe it's forthcoming soon. And in terms of, talking about being at 95%, we're just making comments on things that we saw on the site during that August 5th event, such as this temporary basin area here that was still taking on, obviously, untreated runoff was accumulating in this basin. So if there had been a larger rain event than occurred on the 5th, this would have overtopped and resulted in an additional discharge. So this needed some pre-treatment. So it's small things like that still need to be mindful of and keep improving. And that's what we mean by 95%.
Okay.
And to that end, Mr. Harrow did observe, it was accurate. That condition that existed at that lower area should not have occurred, and it was corrected today. And it could have been corrected on Monday, but that contractor had a funeral to go to, and I understood the circumstances of his immediate family needing him to be there. So I understood that, and there was no rain anticipated. So I personally told him to do it today, and he did. So that should not have occurred, and it did. That basin was not designed to hold that turbid water condition that you see in that picture. So there should have been no.
No, we get it, Mr. Bemis. Again.
Just explaining what Mr. Harrow saw was accurate.
We want the site buttoned up. We don't want explanations or excuses, sorry that he had to go to a funeral or whatever, but, have a backup plan, I guess is my point.
Understood. Yes, sir. Okay.
All right,
Very
thank you. Okay, have a good evening, folks.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's move along to the agenda items. So as Kim had mentioned, Leonard Street, Lot 1A, 2A, and 3A have been continued out to the 24th. So we have Paluzzo for Cobbler's Way, a continuation of a notice of intent.
Through the chair,
Yes.
the Leonard Street ones are new hearings. Can you just legally open those, please, and then continue them?
I will do that. Thank you very much for reminding me. So for the Leonard Street sites, the Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, August 10th, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. Virtually online to hear all persons interested in an amended notice of intent filed by Wall Street Development Corp. To construct a single-family house with associated site work. The location, 0 Leonard Street, Lot 1A, Assessors Map U19, Block 52, Lot 0. So that is continued to August 24th. Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, August 10th, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. virtually online to hear all persons interested in an amended notice of intent filed by Wall Street Development Corp. To construct a single-family house with associated site work, 0 Leonard Street, Lot 2A, Assessors Map U19, Block 52, Lot 0. That one also continued to the 24th. And the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, August 10th, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. virtually online to hear all persons interested in an amended notice of intent filed by Wall Street Development. Construct a single-family house and associated site work, 0 Leonard Street, Lot 3A, Map U19, Block 52, Lot 0. And that one is continued to the 24th as well. Thank you, Anna. Okay. So Paluzzo, 4 Cobbler's Way. Mr. Markonaut?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir.
How are you?
Good, thank you. So I think the issue was the fence outside of the PIB. Has that been moved inside the PIB?
Predominantly, yes. We have relocated the pool, twisted the pool about 45 degrees and moved it slightly closer to the home. We're now able to put the proposed fencing and limit of work generally inside the PIB, except for one small area north of the patio corner. on the plan that is being shared on the screen right now. That PIB was the old hay bale line, the old erosion control line. And the tree with the maple with the medallion sign is depicted there on the plan. We feel that the pool and the proposed work generally in line with what we heard the other night at the initial public hearing.
Okay. Okay. All right, let me open it up to comments from the commission members.
Through the chair,
Go ahead, Ted.
it may be continuing connectivity issues with me, Mr. Marquardt, but can you tell me again about that tree? I didn't quite understand what you were explaining about that tree in the PIB.
Certainly, the photo that is on the screen now may give some clarity to what I was trying to state. That wooden stake with the yellow ribbon is the proposed fence line. That blue ribbon on the maple tree is the tree with the medallion sign identified on the plan as the PIB. So we are at the limit of the lawn along what appears to be generally along the old hay bale line.
But does that mean you're still proposing to keep the fence inside the old PIB? Is that what I'm looking at with that picture?
Yes, I believe, yes.
Okay. I thought you said we are within the old PIB except for one place, and I thought it was that.
That
tree.
is the spot right there. And as you look at that, I feel like the fencing is actually at the limit of the lawn. If you wouldn't mind heading back to the site plan, that would be that location right there with the cursor. You can see the PIB, the old hay bale line.
So that
Oh.
PIB was installed on the tree, but you're saying it should have been closed, more in the lawn area?
I guess looking more for clarification, the PIB was the limit of work. The original development of this lot done for Mr. Gassett, or is the PIB the medallion sign?
Okay, I think I understand.
Sign, then we're inside that line.
So the fence is inside the PIB.
By about 3 feet, correct.
Okay. Okay. Jim, Ed, any comments?
Yeah, so just will the medallions get moved to the fence? Wouldn't that make sense instead of on trees? Or am I missing something? Open question.
Mr. Marquardt?
Chris Peluso is on the call. Perhaps he could weigh in. He'll be the one looking at the sign.
I'm not sure what the question is.
The medallions, or do we move them to the fence or leave them on the trees? Whatever will make you guys happy. We'll move the medallions.
Well, I mean, other commission members, what do you think?
I'm good with them being on the trees. If they're on the trees, if they remain on the trees, that's fine with me. If they're not on the trees, we can put them there.
That's fine with me. Thank
Fine
you.
with me.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions or comments from the public on this filing?
Through the chair,
Yes, Kim.
question for Mr. Marquardt. I'm seeing that there's a proposed dry well. Is that proposed to accept discharge flows from the pool?
Discharge flows for routine or emergency maintenance up to 1,000 gallons. Winter drawdown to break down the pool for cold weather. That will be done through a vacuum assembly on a truck, will be trucked off-site. So that is only for small repairs. And
Okay,
a capacity of 1,000 gallons.
All right, so that could be a special condition for the commission to consider that any kind of emergency drawdown of or seasonal of the pool would need to be trucked off-site.
Yep.
I think
I
that was in
makes
LE's
sense.
recommendation as well.
Is that an acceptable condition, Mr. Marquardt?
Sorry, I did not hear that. Could you repeat that?
Sure, I would recommend a special condition that if the pool needed to be completely draw down beyond that 1,000 gallon limit of the dry well, that would need to be, trucked off site. The
Oh, sure.
commission prefers.
We have no issue with that.
Okay.
Through the chair, I think LE in their comments, comment number 4, provided language that he recommended on that very point.
Matt did?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep, I see it. Pool water shall be discharged only to this dry well and not discharged overland into any receiving wetlands. Good catch.
Okay. All right, Matt, did you have any other comments?
I'm all set.
All right, if I get a motion to close and approve the notice of intent as discussed with the special condition noted for
So moved.
4 Cobbler's Way.
So moved.
All right, Jim, in a second.
Ted will second.
All right, and the roll call, Jim,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and Jeff is an aye. Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Paluzzo. Good luck. Have a good evening.
You too, sir.
All right, so Aho 103 Wood Street has been continued to the 24th. So we'll move on to Ravenwood LLC. This is a notice of intent for a subdivision. It's a continuation.
Hi, good evening. This is
Believe
Scott
Mr.
Goddard from Goddard Consulting. How you doing?
Good evening, Mr. Goddard.
So this is a continuation since the last meeting for the open space subdivision. And I believe, so Joe Marquardt is on as well as Ron Nation, the applicant. At the last meeting, we opened up the discussion with the presentation of the project. Yep, that's the graphic. The update since the last meeting is that there has been 2 peer review letters submitted back to us. One was from Beta dating about a week or 2 ago, and one was today's date. I think it was today or yesterday from Lucas. So we are in receipt of those. The planning board has also opined on this project, and as of yesterday, they approved it at their meeting. So this is something that is now operating with a approved planning board decision. The stormwater was reviewed as part of that, so there was a duplicative process with stormwater and the beta review with the Conservation Commission. So Joe can comment on where we stand with the stormwater. And then also, I haven't had a chance to give a written response to Matt's letter. However, I did review it, and I don't know if the commission will be asking him to review his comments. There's some administrative items that I need to button up and respond to that I think should be not too problematic. But I didn't see anything in his letter that is insurmountable hurdle for this project. There was some comments about the wetland replication and the location of it. I think we'd like to keep it in the location it's presented as of right now. If the commission or Matt wants to see it changed to the field location, we're certainly amenable to that as well. But unless there's a good reason to, we might as well just keep it where it is. But maybe Matt can highlight the specific things that he wants to discuss with the commission and myself this evening. We can try to hit those verbally and decide what needs to be submitted, documented wise before the next meeting. And then we wouldn't look to close this hearing tonight, but hopefully we can get you everything you need in terms of the timing to get it closed for the next meeting. But maybe it might be helpful first if Joe could summarize where we stand with the stormwater in light of the beta review and the peer review comments and planning board and such.
So as Scott mentioned a moment ago, there have been several peer review letters, several revisions to the plan as we went through the planning board review process. We are down to just a couple of items that the planning board has deemed, I'm gonna say minor, but as deemed something that could be handled as we move through and produce a final stamped official set for the planning board. Met offline with John Gelchich, town planner, and Phil Paradis today to iron out those three issues. So as far as we are concerned, the review of the stormwater basins is complete. They're adequately sized, can be constructed according to the design plans, and should function appropriately given the routine maintenance that we've proposed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Markemont. So that just reviewing, and Matt can jump in a second here, but there are a couple things that jumped out to me in his review. So one of them is comment 2B. The proposed wetland mitigation area is a forested mature upland with a close canopy and dense understory of shrubs. That's the characterization of the mitigation area. And then the Army Corps, operating procedures states, and Matt has it here, summed up, mature forested uplands and other non-degraded non-wetlands are generally inappropriate for the uses wetland creation sites. So that was one. The other thing that Matt has suggested was the wetland mitigation be proposed as a limited project. That would be at the discretion of the applicant. So that's not something that's required. But I think, it gives some more flexibility in the location of the mitigation area. And could potentially result in a more favorable and successful outcome for the replication area. In 10, comment 10, with the detention basin, site conditions appear to be relatively flat within the area of the proposed basin. It appears that the basin could be moved to the west, avoiding most or all impacts to the riverfront area. And then comment 12, phasing plan for the construction of the site. And this is really a result of what we've seen at, a few of the sites in the past in the recent past where the site, is completely denuded initially, and we're running into, erosion control issues with these, significant storm events we're getting. So I think, Matt's point there is, can we have a phasing schedule or sequence where the entire site isn't denuded, initially, but in phases. And then comment 13 was the EPA general construction permit. So Matt, I'll leave it at that if you want to jump in and provide some, color and clarification.
Sure, Jeff, thank you. I think you hit pretty much the highlights. I will mention, as I mentioned to Kim right after the site inspection, there was a an apparent violation on the site of equipment going through the wetland, presumably for the soil testing on the site. I don't know if the applicant wants to speak to that at all tonight, or if the commission wants to talk about that in any further detail. As far as the wetland mitigation, I think based on my comments, I guess I was somewhat leading the commission in a direction to say that moving it into the field area in some capacity might make more sense rather than taking down the fairly nice forested upland area that's immediately adjacent to the wetland. Certainly ample area in the open field. And I included a little bit of commentary in this as well, that although the open field is, a nice amenity as you drive into town there, it's not really large enough to provide any important habitat for something like grassland, nesting birds, or anything like that. It certainly provides a diversity of habitat on the site, but I don't believe it's anything unique that, anyone should go out of their way to preserve necessarily. As far as where to locate mitigation in that area, I don't know if the applicant would look to the area where currently there are 2 billboards. That area is obviously disturbed from the existence of the billboards. I don't know if those billboards are staying or going or what the situation is there, but that would seem to potentially be a decent place to put it. It's further away from the road, so over at the far end of the field area. But I guess it's really up to the applicant to come back with a proposal for an alternate location. Quite a few of the comments, as Scott indicated, are fairly minor and should be able to be addressed quite easily. With regard to the disturbance of the riverfront area, as Jeff mentioned, placement of stormwater structures within the riverfront area is at the discretion of the commission, and the applicant needs to go through a demonstration of alternatives analysis to show that there are no alternatives, as was stated in the application, that the stormwater cannot go anywhere else. In looking at the plans, that area is quite flat. We are aware that the soils are quite poor on the site. So the basin, the way it's being constructed, is more sort of a bermed area as opposed to an excavation, which would lead me as a non-engineer to believe that it could potentially be moved out of the riverfront area. I did have a brief conversation with Phil Paradis about that, and he agreed that it was likely feasible to move that basin outside of the riverfront area. So I think there's some more homework there to for the applicant to really demonstrate why it can't be moved, or ideally move it out so the riverfront area can remain completely untouched, which would be the commission's preference. And then, as Jeff said, as we've seemingly learned on some of the storms we've had over the summer here on some of these sites, really buttoning down a really tight phasing plan for this site and really all future sites of this type is going to be important. That really set strong language as to, and plans that show what's going to be cleared when and what needs to be achieved before that next phase is undertaken. And I think it's, again, the applicant's duty to provide that phasing plan and then allow the commission to comment on it and decide if it needs more teeth put in it or if it's fine as it is.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond briefly?
Yes.
So I'm not prepared to get into a long dialogue about the letter. I think that a lot of these things are appropriate comments and can be addressed, and will, as the commission likes to see, we'll give you a written response point by point to these items. some of these might be worthy of some discussion tonight. I think one of the bigger ones is the location of the wetland replication area. We have no problem relocating that into the field. I think it's fine and appropriate to do so. It was originally placed in this location to avoid having to cite the project as a limited project, and the limited project provision comes in that the replication area being sited away from the proximity of the crossing is not really the intent at face value of the replication standards. So we'll make that change. We'll move it into the field. We'll change it to be a limited project crossing and move forward based on what I'm hearing, unless the commission feels differently than that. As far as the crossing and access for the soil testing that took place, I don't know if Ron's on and wants to comment on that, but my understanding is that there was soil testing that did take place. It was crossed during a dry period during a time when a rubber track machine, could get in there. It looks like some damage did occur based on this picture here, and I acknowledge that occurred. This is in the location where the crossing is proposed. So at the end of the day, the damage that was done will overlap on top of where the culvert and the crossing is proposed. If that's of any merit, trying to move forward here. So this will get taken care of. I don't think there's restoration work that's needed in this spot if we move forward with the design as proposed. It probably should have come before the commission with a NOI or an RDA at the very least for a discussion, and clearly didn't happen that way. So we'll move the replication area as discussed, and then we'll look at this stormwater question. I don't know, Joe, if you had initial thoughts on this. I know you hadn't had a chance to digest this question, or do we want to take this and look at it first before you offer any comments or suggestions about its location?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared.
Okay.
Review that. I did not have a chance to read this memo. I'm reading it right now.
Okay.
And then, so.
So Joe and I and Ron will put our heads together and look to get the commission a response to all this. And we certainly agree on the phasing plan. We'll get you a good construction sequencing phasing document as well.
Okay, all right, that sounds good, Mr. Garden. And, with regard to the crossing, it doesn't look like there was a lot of damage there. So, I don't think any kind of replication is required. I just, to be honest with you, and I'll speak frankly, I mean, you've been doing work in Hopkinton for over 20 years. So, what the commission's requirements are. An RDA would have been appropriate, and I just feel like, this was an oversight that shouldn't have happened. Okay, and I'll leave it at that. Okay. All right. Are there any other comments from the commission members?
I have a quick question for Mr. Goddard. At least I think it's quick. If we're moving replication to the meadow, I think, Scott, you mentioned something that I'm not familiar with, a wet meadow. Is that what would be created in there, or and maybe you have to think about it before you move, before you can even answer.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think a wet meadow is a great idea for the location. It certainly suits the area and is consistent with the surrounding, sort of forest covers and meadow types that exist. So I think that makes sense, and we can propose it that way.
But could you just help me? What is
under the limited project provisions that can be allowed? It's not directly an in-kind replication, replicating a forest into a wet meadow, but within the limited project, that level of discretion can be implemented by the commission, and we can propose a wet meadow. I think it would be great.
What does that look like? Is that like cattails and stuff? What is a wet meadow?
it can include cattails sometimes. Usually we would do more, fac wet meadow species, things like Joe Pye weed, boneset, certain grasses and sedges, low-lying herbaceous material would make it that are fac wet type of species.
Through the
And
chair.
then oh wait, maybe you were going to answer that, Matt. I was going to say, Matt, what's your answer to that?
Yeah, so sort of the quick answer on what does a wet meadow look like to a certain degree is, if you look on this plan, the area that's in the field that's shown as wetland, that's for all intents and purposes a wet meadow. But it's a wet meadow primarily because it's mowed regularly. Establishing a fully sustainable natural wet meadow is a pretty difficult feat, in all honesty, because you really have to nail the hydrology just right, where it's too wet for most woody species to want to grow, but wet enough to support the herbaceous species. Mr. Goddard is certainly welcome to take a crack at it, but I would guess, long term, it's, unless somebody's maintaining it in some way, it's going to naturally succeed into a shrub swamp and eventually to a forested swamp, just because you have all the natural red maple seeds primarily and other things are going to fall into it and have it turn into, forested long term, 30, 40 years out. If you end up having it too wet, it basically turns into a marsh, which is going to be typically be dominated by cattails, or often in our case around here, purple loosestrife as well. So it's a tricky thing to do. I'm not saying it can't be done. Like I said, it's up to the applicant as to sort of the level of effort that they want to put into it. But for the size of this, again, this nice photo that Kim's brought up is, it's on a very large scale somewhere, with probably very long established hydrology that's unlikely to occur on this site, I would guess. But
Well, and Matt, you're right. The wet meadows largely also are managed too. They have a part of a mowing program, and if left to their own, they will succeed into a shrubby area and ultimately to a forest area. So insofar as this meadow that we're adjacent to stays maintained, it seems feasible to me that we could maintain portions of it being wet with a management and mowing program. But you're right.
yeah,
it's
and
not
that was
mowing.
actually one of my other comments was, what the future of this meadow is as far as maintenance, who's going to be responsible for maintenance and things like that. So if a wet meadow is proposed and that's the goal of the mitigation, then I think that's going to be, and basically if maintenance of it is part of its success parameters, then that needs to be part of the plan as to sort of the long-term view of who's doing that and whose responsibility.
Right, but if it turns into too much of a maintenance issue in perpetuity, then it might not be worth doing for such a small area. That at that point, it might just be worth letting this go to an adjacent shrub forested condition and be done with it.
So through the chair, following Matt's comment, thank you very much, Matt. Is there going to be a plan to maintain this as a meadow? Is that part of the I guess the deliverable?
Well, I think for the time being, while it's under ownership of the nations, the idea would be to keep it mowed as a field as it has been. Once this property transfers ownership, and the current owners are no longer the owners, whether they maintain that field may very well be up to somebody else down the road. So I don't know that we have an in perpetuity plan for that field, but for the time being, it is a mowed and managed field area. For that to stay a field, it would need to stay mowed. Right?
Well,
If you stop mowing that field for 5 years, it's going to stop being a meadow.
Believe me, I am painfully aware.
Okay. All right. Questions or comments from the public at this point? All right. Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Goddard. And we'll continue it out to the 24th. You can please send Kim an email requesting that continuation, please.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, Hopkinton LNG, this is a continuation of a notice of intent, 52 Wilson Street. Do we have folks on the call from Eversource or Hopkinton LNG?
Good evening, everybody. This is Mike 2, project engineer, Eversource.
Good evening, Mike.
And Tracy Adamski is here from Ty and Bond, consultant to Eversource.
Hi, good evening, Tracy.
Good evening.
As well as Dan Boulay from Time Bond.
Okay, sounds good. Where are we, folks?
So I guess I'll jump in. We have received written comments. Well, I guess we had received written comments prior to the previous submission from Lucas Environmental, but we've also received written comments from Beta on the stormwater management, and we have provided responses to both sets of comments. And those were provided to the commission yesterday. In general, we've addressed the comments that have been received. I think from Lucas, there weren't too many significant comments. We updated our details for erosion control measures to address comments from both Beta and Lucas. We removed the small wetland, as when we were in the field, we realized that was not a wetland resource area. We've added a conservation seed mix, as well as some plantings of serviceberry to the plans. And that is adjacent to that additional fire access road that kind of extended outside of the, down in that area there, but closer, on the other side of the road near the wetland. So we added those buffers to the wetlands. If you scroll down a couple plans, there's a detail showing, keep going. There you go. Actually, I think it might be another plan, but there's plantings proposed in there. Are these the latest plans?
So Tracy, the latest plans that I have are actually dated 6/23. So it sounds like I might be out of the most recent, or, oh, you attached them,
Yeah,
didn't
they
you?
were attached.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It would be the updated of that plan that you were just on. There you go. So if you, so we're showing some additional plantings there, as well as we are proposing the PIBs as to be as well to be located in that general area.
Okay, and is there a detail on the plantings? Tracy?
There's a description of the plantings. Rolling down here. We don't have a specific detail for the plantings, but we have called out
Native plantings.
Yep.
right there, the bottom note. There you go.
Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Kim, sorry.
It looks like a service ferry is proposed.
Okay. Okay, all right, and then Matt, where are we on your comments on this? Sorry, if you already went through this.
I think we're in good shape. I think for the most part, they answered the questions. I mean, there was a question about does the area provide vernal pool habitat? In their opinion, it doesn't. You know, it looked like there's some potential there, but I don't. It's not something that I feel all that strongly about, in all honesty.
Okay.
I think with plantings, it offsets some of the impacts of having the road that close to that area. So I'm pretty much all set.
Okay, and then Kim, I'm sorry, was there any outstanding items from Beta's review on this, or are we good with them?
I'm taking a look. I believe we are all set with Beta. I apologize. I didn't have as much time as I'd like to go through these.
Because they were gonna look at some of the drainage. I know one of the residents had brought up some concerns at the last meeting about drainage issues, which in my opinion aren't originating from this portion of the site, but I'm not a professional engineer. So.
Through the chair?
Go ahead, Matt.
There was one area that when I had walked the site with Tracy that I had asked about, they were going to walk the site with Beta, I think on the following day. I was wondering if Tracy might just be able to speak to that. You know what I'm talking about, Tracy?
I do, and actually Tim Grace is on the line from Ty and Bond, and he walked the site with Beta, so I'll let him speak to that too.
Okay.
Yeah, so we walked the site. It was us, Ty and Bond, Beta, and Eversource, and we did find the area that the resident was talking about with their concerns. And it appears that there is some channelized flow leaving a private property, into the right of way, but it actually isn't Eversource property. It's the parcel next door, which I believe is owned by Tennessee Gas. But it's definitely occurring, but it doesn't appear to be coming off of this property.
Okay.
And Tim, you guys also walked the back of the property beyond the fence line, where we had looked at where the drainage was coming off from with Matt while we were out there.
Correct. We looked at that area as well.
And that area does not drain down over to Wilson Road directly.
No, it does not.
Okay, Kim, what was I'm looking at a Beta review dated July 29th. Is that the latest one that we have, to your knowledge? Or is it one more recent than that?
That's the latest one, Jeff.
Okay. Okay. Just bear with me for a second here, folks.
Through the chair.
Yes, go ahead, Kim.
It does look like all of the comments have been addressed. There's one comment that jumps out to me. SW8, basically Beta requested soils information from test pits. And the response from the applicant was that basins 1 and 2 were provided, and then basins 3 and 4 were subsequently added. And that the test pits can be performed prior to construction if required. It seems like that's kind of the only outstanding item.
Okay,
So, I'm not sure that I can opine on how Beta might feel about that, but I'm not sure if the commission wants to entertain a condition to have those results prior to construction.
yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm good with that. So if we can have those test pits performed and the results submitted to Beta and the commission before construction, Tracy, Tim, does that sound reasonable to you as a condition?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. And then there are a couple special conditions that we have. Kim, can you bring those up, please? Or I can, if you don't have them readily available, I think I can bring them up.
I'm gonna write up, Jeff.
So we had a couple conditions, and I just want to give you folks an opportunity just to take a look at this briefly. Make sure that you are, these were recommended by town council, so we just want to make sure that you're aware of these conditions that will also be incorporated into the order.
So just a question on the last one. Is that any filing related to the project, or any filing related to the project that includes impact within the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction?
Any filings related to work that would be under our jurisdiction.
Okay.
Kim, is that your understanding?
Yes, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can request filings that aren't under our jurisdiction, so. Are those acceptable? Tracy, Tim?
Yeah. Yes, those seem acceptable.
Okay, so we have these three conditions, and then the additional condition of the test pit work that'll be conducted and then submitted to the commission prior to construction. So there's 4 in addition to our standard conditions. Okay, are there any questions or comments from the public at this point? And go ahead and raise your hand. I don't see any hands raised. Okay, if I can get a motion to close and approve the notice of intent for Hopkinton LNG with the conditions as discussed and noted.
Ted, I'll make that motion.
All right, Ted, in a second, please.
This is Ed. I'll make the second.
And we'll do the roll call vote. Ted,
Ted, aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Kerry,
Aye.
and Jeff is an aye. Okay, great. Thank you, folks. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you very much.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Okay,
Jeff?
yep. Ted, go ahead.
Before we go forward, just really quickly, if we're getting runoff from the Tennessee gas site, if that's true, is that something we should be looking into?
Yeah, I think so. You know, it's been a concern of some of the abutters up in that area over the past few years. So I think that, you know, it warrants our kind of investigation as to what's going on there. So,
Okay,
we can, yeah, I can work with Kim offline on that and Matt. But that's a good point, Ted.
okay, great, thanks.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay, moving along, mass laborers training. This is a continuation of a notice of intent for the Conti building.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Connors.
Just a couple of points of order on numbers 10 and 11, the pond and the restoration. I'd like to continue those to your next meeting. Interest of time.
Okay, so that's fair. Can we just ask you what's the status of the restoration portion of the project? Can you just give us
The
a
area-
background on what the timing intent is there?
Yeah, they put in curbing so that they can't go down there, and they've cleaned out whatever was in there. We're gonna amend the plan a little bit for that because they did, and they typically do every year for 40 years, plow snow there and then remove the material. So when I was talking to them a while back, they said, let's not do that. Let's get some curbing in there so you don't use it. And they did that, and that's there. We're going to amend that plan a little bit. It'll still have the fence and the restoration. But as
All right,
of
we just want to make sure that that's kind of front and center with these other portions of the project. We don't want that really, kind of the last order of business with everything that's going on out there.
Yeah, that is not the intent. If it's snow
Okay.
tomorrow, they plow there, there's curbing along there set in concrete.
Okay, and then just a quick point, I know that we're continuing these, in Beta's review, they had mentioned some BMPs related to the pond dredging. So, I would just ask you to take a look at those comments, incorporate that into the project. So, okay.
Yeah, we've actually got our draft documents for that. We're waiting for our soil testing from the soil testing LSP.
Okay, great. All right, so we'll continue the pond dredging and the restoration plan to August 24th. If you can send Kim an email requesting that continuation, Mr. Connors, that would be great.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll move forward with the Conti building.
Okay, first of all, there was a picture I sent, I think Kim had it up a minute ago, just a view of the area that we're working. If you look at that particular area, over near the building, you can see a tree in a little circle. That tree is right at the edge of what we're calling a little of an addition and a patio area, the intersection of those two. So when we get to the plan, you'll see not only that the area that we're working is all grass adjacent to the pond, but in back of that, you can see a couple of cars that are on paved surfaces. And that's where our infiltration is going to go for these improvements that would drain in that direction. Just for a concept of what's going on in that location. And if we could go to the plan, that would be great. So what we talked about is that little proposed addition in the patio area, and you can see the tree right there. So that's just your reference point. The patio is a little paved area of patio pavers. There was some questions about some soil testing, and we did tests in the two detention infiltration basins, one right next to that patio area on the pavement that I talked about a minute ago. And there's an oil tank in that area that will be removed. We're removing all of the oil tanks, buried oil tanks on the site. Those are going to be notices of intent as soon as we get our LSP to have the documents ready. But those tanks are not going to be in use as we change the energy for the buildings. Basically, we have a 50-foot line shown adjacent to that patio. And you can see that it skirts around our dry well area. So all that work is 50 feet or more outside for that patio. The grading, as you noted on that picture we had a couple of minutes ago, really doesn't change too very much. The patio will be just a foot or so down from the proposed addition. That proposed addition is within 100 feet. You can see the line going through it closer to the building than closer to the patio. And the 75-foot line is right at the proposed addition if you were to scale that in. Most of the work is going to take place in the front of the building, well out of the 100-foot. There's an addition to the building that is going to change the dormitory type operation from double occupancy to single occupancy rooms. We're changing some of the tankage up there for septic systems. And then there's going to be an infiltration system just to the west of the proposed addition. And that's going to have an overflow that will go down towards the back of the site in a northerly direction to the left of the building. And we're calling for a storm scepter just at the above that manhole, that catch basin that has the, just above that is the storm scepter. And we've added a note to the plan off to the left that the existing drainage system, which catches some drainage in the front of the dormitory, some drainage on East Street, and some drainage on the existing parking entranceway. As you can see, all those manholes and catch basins encircled with hay bales to be inspected and maintained as necessary. I will tell you that they had done some installation of a catch basin not too long ago and had cleaned out that drainage system at that time. So it's in pretty good shape. And that's, I think, pretty much it. Beta had some comments. They were to do some modeling of the area in the front. We had proposed to infiltrate all of the surface water from the addition, and they wanted us to do a model for that as well. We did. And have changed some of the storm erosion controls, the straw wattles. We have the PIBs along the edge of parking lot and coming up along the right side near the pond. You can see those. I will note that if you write something in the order about the PIBs, that it should reference that we will be coming in with some work to dredge the pond for the fire chief's requirements. So that should probably have something in there, language that would allow that to take place and not foreclose that opportunity. And I think that's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Khan. What's the disposition of the oil tank that's buried there?
All oil tanks in several different locations, or one at each of the locations. They're going to be removed, and we're going to put propane heating systems in and bring natural gas in at a future time. All the buildings will go on to a gas system above grade present.
So those tanks currently functional or are they abandoned?
Oh, they're feeding boilers and things in the building.
Okay. So you're saying they're going to be removed. Is there like a timetable for that, or just curious?
As soon as
we're
we
talking
have,
like imminently, 5
Yes.
years down the road?
Oh, no, imminently. As soon as the buildings are able to operate on propane, those tanks can be removed.
Okay. All right. And presumably that'll be under supervision by an LSP, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've
So-
been talking to him regularly.
Okay. Who is it that you?
Tom Williamson?
Oh, Tom. I know Tom. I
Yeah.
know Tommy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Tom's good, but he's slow.
Okay. And the proposed addition and patio area are in grass areas, right?
Yeah, that was that picture that Kimberly put up a few minutes ago. Yeah. That tree that's just to the left of her cursor near the building, that's the interface between the building addition and the patio.
Okay.
Right there. You see that?
Yep,
Where the
yep,
cursor is?
there's the tree right there. Okay, I can
Yeah,
see it.
yeah.
Okay. And then, okay. The proposed addition in the southern portion of the building there, that's outside our jurisdiction or no?
Yeah, if you look at the line that goes through proposed addition, yeah, that's the 100-foot. And she takes it down towards the street. So
Okay.
everything to the left of that is 150 or away.
What's this really dark dotted line depicting?
Those are subcatchment areas for drainage calculations,
Okay,
markations.
okay, I don't have any questions. I'll open it up to commission members.
Through the chair,
Yes, go ahead, Ted.
Mr. Connors, maybe I missed it. What is the patio going to be made up of?
Pervious pavers.
Perfect. Thank you.
I did have one question. So the drainage, the stormwater improvements out there, Mr. Connors, there's untreated discharge, from the building right now that's kind of making its way into the fire pond.
Right.
Is the new drainage infrastructure going to clean up the, suspended solids heading down there?
The drainage for the ponds project will pick that all up. There's a catch basin on the street that's bringing most of it in. And then there's a catch basin in the parking lot. You can see a little swale at the corner of the parking lot in the front. That's picking up there's 2 swales there. We're going to capture that and treat that in a storm scepter, connect them all together. And they will discharge into the pond after they take the TSS out.
Okay, so that's part of the drainage or the pond dredging portion of the project.
Yeah, if you look at the right side of the pond, there's a little driveway area shown coming down. So at the top of that, at East Street, on East Street, is a catch basin inlet. And that dumps water from East Street down a little swale along the edge of that into the pond. I think that's our biggest culprit.
Okay,
So
that
that
was
will
a
be
question
taken.
that was a question that Kim and I had because, the thinking is that you wouldn't have to dredge the pond, if that's treated properly, right?
Yes. Yes.
Through the chair?
Yes, go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, I would just reiterate that it becomes difficult I know at least for me, and I surmise for the commission to evaluate these types of improvements without seeing them when we're kind of chopping the projects up into different applications. So it's hard to get that holistic picture without kind of getting the whole picture.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Kim.
Well, I can assure you that the laborers are doing a pretty good job. They're very responsive to anything that the town has wanted. And dredging is kind of an odd type thing that occurred at the latest point in the whole process by a fire chief request for fire safety. And we're implementing that. The cost is really high. And adding in the stormwater and storm scepter TSS removal is a fraction of the cost overall of the project as a total thing, and individually for the pond, it's something that we would address anyway, because those waters are directly into the pond. The work that we're doing for the improvements are not.
Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Matt.
I think Mr. Connors had mentioned potentially another filing related to the removal of the tanks. Is that Is that what's contemplated?
Yeah, they're all within 100 feet of wetland.
Okay, I guess my question would be, is there some reason not to just include that work within how many of the existing notices of intent you have before the commission rather than adding more?
The reason for that is we don't know the makeup of the soil. So we don't know the amount of soil removal that may be contaminated. We do have one tank over by the big pond in the middle that did have an oil leak and had been monitored by Tom DEP over the last maybe 7 or 8 years.
So there's open RTNs on those
Yes,
projects right now,
on one, yes.
on one of them?
Yes.
And what phase is it under now? Is it under remediation? Is there phase 2 investigation?
No, it's all remediation. We're just about completed with our pumping and monitoring.
Okay. Okay. So that will be a subsequent notice of intent, you're telling us,
Yes, for 3 or
For the-
4 different tanks, yeah.
for 3 or 4 different tanks. Where are the other ones?
Well, there's one at the Koya building.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so I'm talking about the Conti building.
Oh,
here.
no.
There's one here at the Conti building.
Yeah.
Okay. And is this the open RTN or no?
No, that's at the Koya building,
That's the Tecoya building, okay,
down in the middle of the site.
okay,
That's
Okay.
8 years old.
all right.
Dealing with that
Um,
for quite a while.
So Kim, I'm gonna defer to you on this because I think the work here proposed is fairly minimal, but if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel comfortable closing this without the information from the pond dredging portion of the project, we'll defer to your judgment. And not to put you on the spot, I'm sorry.
I would like to add that the pond dredging is taking some time to get the tests and all that worked up. We have the wildlife habitat aspects done, we have the plan done, but soil testing and lab work is still out a ways.
All right, well, I guess, all right, I think I'm okay with approving this because of the minimal nature of the work proposed for this portion of the project, but just, I want you, Mr. Connors, to understand that, the dredging portion of the project and the associated stormwater work, we're going to look at very closely going forward.
Mhm.
And I think, as I also mentioned, there's kind of an expectation that we want to see the restoration portion of this move forward as well, and not just the commercial aspects of the project.
Right, we did file a NOI and we are moving
Yeah.
forward on everything. It's nothing's hidden.
No, I know. I don't want that to be kind of like, I don't want that to be the part of the project that gets, bookended as the last part. When everything else is done and it doesn't get the attention that, it needs to get. So I guess that's the point.
Well, I invite you to go out and look at it and you'll see that there's, all that stuff has been removed and cleaned up. And I guess that was the typical operation that they've had for the last many, many years. Push the snow down there and clean it out at the end, but that will not continue. Even if it snowed tomorrow, there's curbing there. And all the
Chair,
Yep, Matt, go ahead.
I guess what I'm not understanding from Mr. Connor's statement, it sounds like the work's already been done for which the notice of intent was filed.
It's been cleaned up. It's not exactly as the notice of intent plan shows. I just viewed it 2 days ago or maybe 3 or 4 days ago. I didn't know that there was curbing in there until then. And that's really why we haven't, we're not addressing it tonight, because I would.
I guess I just don't understand the purpose of the notice of intent if the work is just going to be done before the commission has, an opportunity to comment and approve it.
Oh, that's a fair question. As I said, laborers had an opening there and they plowed snow there for years. When we noticed that they had plowed snow with sand or salt or whatever it was, and it accumulated this past winter, it looked a lot different than anyone would expect as a snow pile. So they typically remove whatever it is that's in there. But in order to prevent them from doing anything, I said, look, you can't go down there anymore. And let's just put some curbing in and we'll file a notice of intent to clean it all up. I think it was Ted Baker Hook and I that were out there and looked at it, and it was a holy mess. I don't think it was the intent to do anything, any damage. It's just their operation and they clean up every year. So they got a little bit ahead of our plan. They put the curbing in and they won't plow there, but we would like to have a plan that represents what they did for the approval.
To the chair?
Go ahead, Matt.
I guess just, I don't know if the commission just wants to make it clear to the applicant that, because it wasn't a significant issue, but when I went out to do the site inspection, the pre-construction site inspection for the utility work, all the shrubbery that had been shown on the plan had already been removed, and that work seemingly had, again, gotten ahead of the permitting process. And my fear is that that's going to be a trend on all these notices of intent, that we go out to do pre-construction meetings and half the work's done. And I don't think that's what the commission would prefer to see. I don't want to speak for the commission, so I'll let the commission do with that information as they wish.
Yeah, absolutely not, Matt. Thank you for that. We want to make sure that, the work is being permitted before it's conducted at the site. Mr. Connor. So, I get that, the folks at the laborers are eager to move forward with the work. But as their consultant, I just, let them know that it needs to be permitted, before they can go in and do it. Okay.
Yep.
So I think you understand where we're coming from.
Oh, yes, I do. I just didn't want them to plow down there again this coming winter, and they shouldn't
Chair?
have as well.
Yes, go ahead, Kim.
Mr. Connors, is there a site-wide operation and maintenance plan? And if there is, does it propose new snow storage areas to replace the snow storage area that's now going to be used as mitigation?
Would have to talk with Vito about that. I'm not sure. I know they did add snow storage in on the new buildings. I'm not seeing it on this, but I'm sure.
So this is kind of an example of a site-wide, comprehensive item that would be nice to kind of see a bigger picture on packaged together.
Yeah, they have equipment there that they can move snow, and we can do that for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, we want to make sure that the snow storage isn't in, resource areas, obviously. And to Kim's point, we do like to look at the different, projects like this. We do like to look at the different aspects in detail. But we also like to see kind of a holistic plan as well that captures, kind of the big picture, where snow is going to be stored, kind of an overview of stormwater controls, those types of things. So we like, I think we need to kind of see the big picture as well as, these individual filings as well.
Mhm.
So that, if that could be provided, that would be helpful.
Not a problem.
Kim, does that capture what your thinking is?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, any comments or questions from the public on this one?
Through the chair, this is Ed.
Yes, Ed.
If you'll permit me a slight extraneous deviation, Cheryl, that would be my wife's dad, owned a significant Boston area general union shop contractor. And he commented frequently on the quality of the product that came out of the Laborers Training Academy. And I hope, Mr. Connors, you will pass that along to whomever. And anyone who has got a few minutes of free time sometime that wants to hear a hilarious story about a firefighting pond, I've got one.
All right. Thank you, Ed. Okay, any other comments from the public or commission members? All right, if I can get a motion to close and approve the notice of intent as discussed.
So moved.
All right, and a second, please.
Second, Jim.
All right, we'll do the roll call vote. Carrie?
Aye.
Ted?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Jeff is an aye. Okay, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Connors.
Thank you.
Tell Mr. Williams said I said hello when you talk to him.
Will he work faster?
What's that?
Will he work faster?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not, but
You know my problem.
all right.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening. Thank you.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So Pulte Homes, we're moving on to work session items. Legacy Farms North violation and fines discussion. Mr. Endel, are you with us?
I am, yes.
Good evening, sir. Sorry for the delay. I was hoping to get you kind of squared away at the beginning of the meeting, but that didn't happen. I apologize. Okay. So you got Kim's memo.
I did. I got it this afternoon, yes.
Okay. So we have the breakdown of the fines, right? That makes more sense this time
Does.
around.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so we have the 10,200 from the most recent violation and $6,900 from the March violation, which was held in abeyance, totaling $17,100.
Yep.
And then we have the delinquent SWIP reports totaling 19,600 with the understanding that we understand that someone at some point had told you that you need to submit them. So I think what we will do is, hold those fines in abeyance for the SWIP. We'll assess the fines for the 17,100. Okay.
Okay.
And then, did you guys make any progress? I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback here. Did you have any progress on the down gradient assessment?
Yes, we've contacted New England Environmental. Scott, his lead guy, has been on vacation. He's supposed to be back actually today, I'm told.
Okay.
We're hoping to get him out there later this week or the first part of next week.
Okay.
It is still on our radar. We're still committed to do it. It just
Got
vacation.
it. Yep. Okay.
We're
I
not
got
aware
it.
of his vacation, so.
All right. And then any progress in reaching out to Western Nurseries at all? Is that part of this downgrading assessment?
Yes, it's part of the down gradient assessment. I have not reached out to them directly yet. I want to
Okay,
get an understanding of down gradient before I did anything.
okay. Okay. So if I can get a motion to assess those fees as discussed, please. Totaling 17,100.
I'll make that motion, Ted.
All right, Ted, or actually, I'm sorry, let me retract that. Are there any questions, comments from the commission members? Before we vote on it? I apologize, folks. No, okay, so Ted made the motion, a second, please.
Carrie, I'll second.
All right, and we'll do the roll call vote. Carrie,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Jeff is an aye. Okay, all right, Kim, are we missing anything else on this? I think that covers everything, right?
So the commission has not formally voted to issue the enforcement order.
Okay. So we need to do that. Mr. Endo, it's essentially, you know, the enforcement order is in draft now. Most of the work that's in the enforcement order has been done by you folks. So it's more of kind of a process type thing to memorialize this, if you will. So did you have any questions, Mr. Engel, on this portion of the hearing?
No, I don't believe I've absorbed it, but if that's what this is more administrative to back up what occurred and what needed to be done, then that's fine.
That's basically it in a nutshell. Kim?
Yep.
Is that correct?
So the first portion of the action items were already completed by the applicant, and that includes site stabilization and getting erosion and sedimentation under control. The kind of second portion is the portion that still needs to be completed, and that's the analysis of the downstream impacts.
Yep. That's still ongoing, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Okay, if I can motion to formalize and issue the enforcement order, please.
I'll make that motion, Zed.
All right, in a second.
Carrie, I'll second.
Okay, and we'll do the roll call. Carrie,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Jeff is an aye. Okay, thank you,
Through the
Ms.
chair.
Endo.
Through the chair, sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Kim.
Did the commission want to vote to assess the delinquent SWIP reports and then hold them in abeyance?
Yep, let's do that. That's a good point. Thank you. All right, if I can get that motion.
Can I ask a question before you vote on that?
Sure, absolutely.
In the event that we have another release, the report fine, would that be assessed related to, you know, a turbid water issue, or be related to additional delinquent reports?
It would be, it could be either. So if there was another, you know, and the commission would need to deliberate this, you know, if there was another discharge event, Mr. Endel. So it's, you know, difficult to say how the fine would be assessed, but if it was a fairly minor discharge event, then I would imagine that, you know, a portion of that could be assessed. if there were further delinquent reports that weren't submitted, a portion of that could be assessed. So not necessarily is the entire violation fee going to be assessed. A portion of it is more likely, I guess is the best way to explain it.
Well, again, just for the record, I understand your position, but just for the record, I'm not sure I agree with any fine related to that, only because there was communication from somebody, and again, we do not have email proof of that. I can only go by what my site guy says, who's been there for a number of years. And once we were made aware of the delinquent reports, I believe it was within a week's time, you had literally hundreds of them.
Yeah, we do have that noted in our project file, so that is not overlooked on our part.
Yep. Again, I understand your position. I just wanted to put that on record that I'm
Nope, understood.
I have a hard time with that.
No, I Kim and I discussed this today. So we understand your point of view. The challenge from our standpoint is, someone told you you didn't need to submit them anymore. So, we hear that loud and clear. I just can't imagine anyone on the commission or the commission staff telling Pulte that they didn't need to submit the SWIP reports. So, there was a communication breakdown there. We understand. So, point taken, we got it. It's documented, both in the public record and in our project file.
Okay,
So
fair
I
enough.
understand. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Nundle.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Through the chair,
Yes, Kim.
you never held the vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so we need to take the vote. All right. Can I get a motion, please?
And I'll make the motion.
All right, and a second.
Second.
All right, and we'll do the roll call vote. Carrie,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Jeff is an aye. All right. Thank you, Kim. All right, where are we now on the agenda? Mr. Singh, 42 Greenwood Road.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here.
Good evening, Mr. Singh. Okay. So Kim has put together, she went back in the aerial photo record and in the project file record and put this document together here, a GIS map. So this essentially shows where the PIB was, which was the red on the GIS map. That red line is where the PIB was originally ascribed to the property when the work was done, or when the house was built. So as you can see, the wall was put in, some patio area was put in, some lawn area that is well beyond the PIB, and this was prior to you owning the property, Mr. Singh.
That's correct, yes.
So this happened, in the 2000s, 2005, 2010. But the point being is that where the commission had originally identified the PIB, there's been significant development beyond that permanent immovable barrier, right? So the commission is not going to require you to do restoration, to pull that back. But the proposal of the tennis court in the area down below, and a shed in that area, Mr. Singh, is just, that is something that, the commission just, we don't approve work beyond the PIB from a historical perspective. Okay. So what we would ask you to do is, that grass area down below, that's just allowed to revegetate, regrow. The access around the corner of the property there, I think that, that's fine for the purposes of repairing the wall or any work that you might have to do, down in that area to maintain your property. So I think that's where the commission's at, with regard to the easement. It's just so far beyond the PIB, Mr. Singh. It just, I think it just sets a precedent that, we don't allow any kind of work or easements, in an area that's established as a no disturb zone, which is what a PIB is. So, that's kind of in talking with, Kim, that's kind of the sense that we have, but let me open it up to the other commission members. I don't think there's going to be a problem with you kind of going down into that area and accessing the backside of the property from the standpoint of Halt, and I don't want to speak for Halt, but to do work, if just to have that access in the corner there to do work, I don't foresee that they would have a problem with it as long as that area is not being expanded at all. You know what I mean? But let me open it up to the other commission members at this point for your comments.
So Jeff, you're saying not to allow mowing of that, even if it's, say, plant it with wildflowers and grasses and mow it once a year. So no mowing at all, right?
No, I think it's in an area that's not supposed to be disturbed, Jim. In those cases, it just reverts back to its natural state.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And just out of for clarification, the red line where it's ending, does it stretch to the left or does it end there?
So,
Yep, go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry.
yeah, just to give you a little bit better idea of exactly where the red line came from. I basically geo-reference, which means I took known points and laid this map from 1988 on top of the aerials. And then I traced this kind of squiggly line that you see here that was identified on the plan as the permanent encroachment barrier. I stopped at that point because that PIB line stopped.
Since our property is to the left of that line, would we be able to do anything on the left of that or no?
So it looks to me like the 50-foot kind of continues north along here. It looks like the wetlands are kind of to the right side of the property.
So that line.
So the line would be beyond 50 feet where we identified wetlands. So the question would be that if we are not violating the PIB, if we are doing something to the left of that, could we come back with an NOI to the commission to do something to the left of that?
Like in that area that's being highlighted there?
Exactly.
Mr. Singh?
Because one could orient a tennis court vertically that way.
I think you could file an NOI. And it would be at the, I mean, this, map that had the PIB identified was from 1980. And it's not complete, I guess, so we would kind of have to extrapolate. So I guess, I'm just thinking out loud here. I guess the answer to your question is yes, you could file an NOI to do something in the left-hand portion of the property there. I don't know if you'd be able to get a tennis court in there, Mr. Singh, because if you kind of extrapolate that out, you might have a little corner, on the backside of the property to put a shed or something. If you kind of continue that line down, you know what I mean?
Chair?
Yes, Matt, go ahead.
I think just want to point out that obviously if Mr. Singh were to file a notice of intent, he'd have to have the wetlands flagged on the site as part of that. And I don't know if the commission wants to give guidance on if he were to have the wetlands flagged, it seems like in the previous iteration from way back on this, that the PIB was following the 50-foot buffer zone. Would the expectation be that if he were to have someone flag the wetlands and show a 50-foot buffer off the current wetland line, that there'd be no work allowed, at least within that 50, and anything within the 50 to 100 would be discretionary? I think thinking of guidance for the owner.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable guidance, Matt. That makes a lot of sense to me.
For the chair,
Yes, go ahead, Ted.
just for Mr. Singh's benefit, my own personal take is I don't foresee allowing any work of any kind within the 100-foot barrier, given, granted, before Mr. Singh owned the property, what happened already on the other side of the PIB. I think that my own take would be to provide very, very little, if any, leniency inside the 100-foot buffer zone. Excuse me. I also wanted to say really quickly, if we are allowing access for work around the bottom of the wall there, it might be worth pointing out that any work needs to get our permission, I believe, since we're talking about a whole lot of stuff on the other side of the old PIB. So just because there's a driveway there doesn't mean, I don't think, driving a tractor around to do work is a green light automatically. That's what I got.
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, so if it is in the buffer zone, so if there was, repair work or work that was going to be done, to the wall or the backside of the property there, you just need to notify the commission. I don't think there wouldn't need to be a filing, just a notification. Give us the heads up, depending on what the work is, but I assume that it would be minor if it was repair of the wall.
Through the chair,
Yep, go ahead, Kim.
any kind of construction project back here would also require probably approval from HALT to access on their land.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Does that make sense, Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Okay. Other questions or comments from commission members? Questions or comments from the public? Is there anyone from Halt on the line?
Yes,
Yep, go ahead, Mr. Dauchi.
yeah, Chuck Dotchie, 25 Sanctuary Lane, member of the whole Board of Directors. As the commission is aware, we have tentatively agreed with Mr. Singh to provide an easement at that corner as long as the commission approved that. So I just want to confirm that it looks as if we're moving in that direction. Once that easement's provided, Paul would not require prior notice to any time that he wants to use that easement.
Yep, so just from a correction standpoint, I think the commission is not in favor of granting the easement because it's so far beyond the PIB, Mr. Dauchi.
Then,
So
thanks for clarifying. So in that case, would the gravel need to be removed?
So what I wanted to ask Halt was if Mr. Singh could have kind of an informal kind of access, in that portion of the property to get to the backside of the wall for repair work, necessary repair work for the wall and for the existing structure, not to put new, not to do new work per se. So essentially, if he needed to go around the corner there on Holt property, he could do that. That's up to you guys as Holt. That's not up to us.
That was the intent of the easement, to allow that possibility.
But
because of some of Holt's experience with other encroachments, we definitely prefer to have something formalized. And that's part of our responsibility in enforcing the conservation restriction or our ownership in this case. Yeah. Again, the question is, can the gravel remain, or should that be removed as well?
Well, I think from the commission standpoint, our perspective is because the easement is so far beyond the PIB, that coupled with the fact that, putting an easement in place, in an area that's a PIB sets a precedent that we're not comfortable with. As such, it is up to Halt to decide whether or not you want to leave the gravel there or not leave the gravel there. I don't know. Kim, Matt, do you have any take on that?
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, and Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this area that's kind of shows is that gravel road. When we were last out there, the owner had loamed and seeded it, and it was basically all grass now. Am I thinking of the right place, Kim, or have I got my wires crossed?
You've got a little bit of crossing. This is the area that was, fully loamed and seeded, this kind of lower portion. And then this gravel area was still existing in its current gravel state. Let me see if I can pull up some newer photos.
Then one other thought, sort of somewhat unrelated, but if I can just throw it out there. I don't know if the commission would be amenable to allow Mr. Singh to do any plantings in that area. I'm just thinking if it's just essentially left to its own devices, it's likely to go through a very ugly awkward regrowth stage, and potentially planting some native trees in that area might accelerate a better situation for the current owner, especially in light of the fact that it appears he was not responsible for most of these issues.
Yeah, I think we'd definitely be amenable to that. You know, if Mr. Singh wanted to plant some native trees or, brush in there, that's certainly something that we would be, I think the commission is amenable to, certainly. Make it more aesthetically, pleasing and, and enhance the kind of the value of the habitat, if you will.
Yeah, Jeff, I would much rather see something controlled like that than just letting it become, regular, your typical forest underbrush that we have, mostly invasives,
Right.
So I think that's a good idea.
And I would support that 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want, my sense is, I think we leave that up to the discretion of the homeowner, since he wasn't responsible for clearing it in the first place. I don't want him to have to be responsible for having to do the plantings unless, it was something that he wanted to do. I guess I don't want to penalize Mr. Singh for something that a former homeowner did, from a monetary standpoint, where he's, has to go in and put trees or shrubs in when he wasn't responsible for the disturbance in the first place. But, certainly if he wants to do that, I think, we would support that. Does that make sense to everyone? Mr. Singh, did you have any questions?
Yes.
And no questions. I really appreciate your time.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay. Fox Hollow, we're continuing to the 24th, correct, Kim?
That is correct. The applicant's representative reached out to me and let me know that they're still working through the PIB request that the commission had made at the last hearing. They also submitted a request for an extension of the Fox Hollow Road subdivision permit, but decided to move that discussion to the 24th just so that the applicant's representative could attend one meeting and kind of talk about all those requests at once.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, school department, 88 Hayden Row, an exemption request for a cross-country trail stone dust surface. And I believe we have Mr. Lagoy on the call.
Yes, I am.
Good evening.
Good evening, all. Peter Lagoy, 21 Hayden Row Street, and clerk of the works for the middle school cross-country project that was done for the school department. We put this course in to base coat back in August of 2017. The idea being to get the course in so the kids could run on it that year. The kids quite liked it, which was good, but we also knew that there was a development just to the east of that with a stormwater detention pond. And we were concerned about runoff from that pond. And what we've seen over time is that we have had some erosion that occurred in the course. The the course was put in and over time is a little lower than the surrounding area. And that's allowed it to become basically a drainage way. And what we're looking to do now is to, with the knowledge that we gained over time, go back in there, add some more base material, so raise it up a little bit so that the water stays on the sides where it's supposed to stay and flows off to the sides and not down the center. And then put the final stone dust surface on that we had planned to do originally. but decided to wait on for a couple of reasons. One, just in the interest of time, we couldn't get everything put in, before that cross-country season, but then also, as I mentioned, because of the drainage concerns. In looking at it now, at the western edge where it gets out to connects with the center trail, there's a low area there that at certain times, it's not in wetlands, but in certain times that will flood very quickly. And it's been washing across and taking out a piece of the trail. So we're probably going to need to put a pipe in there to help get that water move through.
So this is the trail that's a little bit further down from Mr. Terry's field there, right?
Correct.
Along the center trail?
Yeah, Mr. Terry's field is north of there by 400 meters, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So just a couple of questions for you, Peter. How long is the construction work expected to take? Well, not the construction, but the resurfacing?
Probably a couple of weeks.
Couple of
more than
weeks.
that.
Okay, and then where are you going to stockpile the stone dust?
We'll stockpile it where we did the last time, which is at the sort of eastern side. The next picture on the plan, basically on the school property. So, yeah, right there where the hand is.
Okay.
Yeah, typically they brought it in truckloads and spread it almost right away.
Right. Okay. Kim, Matt, did you have any further questions? I think this looks pretty straightforward.
Through the chair, I don't have any additional questions. It looked like this project had some conditions and was reviewed in association with an RDA that was filed a couple of years ago. So it kind of seems like this is kind of the last step in the process.
Okay. And you're going to do the work in the fall, Peter?
Yeah, that's the plan is August. Yeah, early fall, again, before trying to get it in before the kids get going too far on it.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff, I have a question.
Yep. Go ahead, Ted.
Sorry, Ed, I cut you off. Peter, I just want to know, I've seen the ruts in the trail right now. Where has all that material washed to?
I think it's redistributed mostly on the trail. There's a little bit of a pile down near the center trail. But by and large, it seems to redistribute somewhere along the trail.
Okay, so it's not getting washed into the wetlands or anything?
No. Doesn't appear to be. I mean,
looking at the contour lines, it doesn't look like it should. I didn't follow. I saw the ruts. I didn't try to follow the debris to see where it went.
Yes, I know. It's like, where did it go? Because usually there's a pile somewhere, but it seems to redistribute into the trail.
Okay.
Okay, so now through the chair, this is Ed. So do I understand this water is coming from off-site, from a change?
It's a combination of things. That whole area has very shallow groundwater. So anytime you get, even though it's upland, even time you get a lot of water, in the spring, it gets pretty soggy just for that time of year. It's fairly similar in terms of what's over by the Marathon School, where it's upland, but in the spring, you tend to have till about 1.5 feet down, and it creates problems. The water won't seep down through there when you've got a good flow.
Yeah, I just, my interpretation of what you said was that there were some changes in time and that has affected this trail somehow. And it just
There's a
seems-
little bit of that too. So that the stormwater management, there's a pipe that comes out there. So, you know, we'll need to play and we've looked at that and make sure that that's addressed, but there's a little bit of excess, but you know, I'm sure they're meeting their criteria, but it just because of the really high till layer here and the fact that in the spring, the water doesn't seep in anywhere here. It's difficult to deal with.
Just kind of overland flow through that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, questions, comments from the public? I don't see anyone's hands raised. Okay, so this is an exemption request. We don't need to vote on it. So I think you are good to go, Mr. Lagoy.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Yep, have a good evening.
care.
Okay. In-person versus remote meetings for the fall. So a couple quick points here, and then we'll open it up to discussion. So I think a couple months ago, the commission had talked about in August, kind of regrouping and thinking about whether we wanted to hold the meetings in person beginning in September. Which is why we're having the discussion. Secondly, I think Kim and Anna can attest to the fact that there's kind of a shortage of space right now for in-person meetings, meaning, you know, the senior center isn't an option. I think at town hall, there's limited options. So anyways, kind of in internal discussion, we were thinking maybe continue with virtual meetings through September. And then in September, we regroup and think about kind of reevaluating this for the October timeframe. So with that kind of backdrop, I'll open it up to discussion.
Through the chair, this is Ed. I recommend start line.
You can't drink at town, open meetings, Ed, so that's not gonna work.
Well, we can be on our best behavior.
Well, I guess you can take that up with Norman. He might disagree with you, but
Jeff, I like that plan. And as cumbersome as Zoom is, doing a meeting with my glasses fogging up because of a mask doesn't sound fun either.
yeah, that's a good point, Ted. I mean, I don't want to sit through a 3-hour meeting with a mask on, in a hot senior center, in September, and, with the Delta variant, a few of us on the commission, I won't name any names, but a few of us are older, so we're more susceptible to, more at risk. Jim and Ed, I said I'm not naming any names.
I know. So, listen.
And my naming not any names is in there too, because I'm right up there with you guys.
Yeah.
Suck it up, baby.
As
You're getting
depressing as it is to say, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
So does that sound like a good plan, Jim?
Okay with that. We are up to the Lambda variant. So we only have 22 more Greek letters of variants to go through. So we'll be in person sometime.
All right.
Jeff,
Yeah, go ahead, Ted.
one other thought, masks or not, I would like, when we go back in person, as long as there's still some variant out there, to have a little more space around the table than we've had back at the senior center. We're really right on top of each other at that table. So I know it's difficult to find space anyway. I would also like, whether it's at the senior center or somewhere else, to give us, when we are in person, a little more space so we're not right on top of each other the way we have.
Yeah, yeah. No,
There you go.
That's a good
Hey,
point.
Jeff, I got a question.
Yeah.
Unrelated to commission business. Do we get a carbon offset for wearing a mask and breathing in our own greenhouse gases?
I'll defer to Matt and Kim on that. I mean, they're the experts. I don't know.
Yeah, just keep in mind.
I
When
think
you're wearing a
Anna's-
mask,
I think Anna's response was appropriate. Take a drink.
Okay, so let's defer the discussion for another month and we'll kind of regroup, in August. Or September, sorry.
deal.
Okay, and then commission reorg. Since Melissa, Carrie's with us, but since Melissa isn't here, I think we should probably just table this till the next meeting.
Yeah, good idea.
Janine's not with us either tonight, so, if we're gonna have that discussion, we should have a full commission, if we can make it work. And then Kim, any public forum requests?
Nada.
Nada. Perfecto. Okay. Any comments, questions, final thoughts from the commission before we end our evening together?
I have another idea for a meeting place, laborers.
We'll have to ask Mr. Connors.
Next
There you
time.
go.
That might work. All right, that's a good suggestion, actually, Ed,
Thank you.
Okay,
Once in a while, I'm awake.
right. Any other final thoughts, questions?
No,
All right, if I get a motion to adjourn the meeting, please.
so moved.
Moved.
And Ed seconded, and we'll do the roll call. Carrie,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Jeff is an aye. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Good night, everybody.
All
Good
right,
night, everyone.
Good
have a
night.
good
Thanks.
night. Talk to you later. Bye.